How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the Thinking Blue podcast. I'm your host, Blake Harris, and I'm officially back. It's been, I think, since early March since I did my last podcast. The last one I did was when I broke down the 26-man roster who I thought was going to make it for the Dodgers, and as you all know, the last few months, there's been a lot that's been going on in the world, and I pretty much just kind of stayed clear of doing the podcast, just didn't really feel like doing it, but now that we have a season, I think it's the perfect time to bring some life back into it, talk some Dodgers baseball on a daily basis, maybe a few times a week. I'm not exactly sure how often I'm going to be recording this, but again, with the season back, I thought it'd be a perfect time to just talk Dodger baseball, bring some good back when there's not a whole lot out there. So we got a jam-packed show this week because we have a few months of stuff I pretty much haven't talked about, but I'm essentially going to keep it to essentially what's happened in the last few weeks. So on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Dodgers' upcoming 2020 season, what we can expect from them, and whether or not if they win a World Series title, should that be viewed as legitimate? Should there be an asterisk next to that title? I'm also going to be sharing my thoughts on Mookie Betts signing a lifelong contract with the Dodgers, assuming it's a lifelong contract. You know, if he's still going strong at the age of 37 or 38, maybe he can get another contract. But I'm going to be talking about that contract, what it means for the Dodgers and what it means for him. I'm also going to be breaking down some things from opening day last night, and I'm also going to be sharing my thoughts on the expansion of the postseason that we just learned about yesterday. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to go follow me on Twitter at Blake Harris, TBLA, where I post a lot of great Dodgers content. It was a lot of fun last night posting a bunch of stuff to Twitter about opening day. So again, if you're a Dodgers fan, that's an absolute must follow. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. Also, I'm on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so make sure you go subscribe and follow over there. That way you can check out the show when you're driving, at the gym, or just wherever you like listening to your podcasts. Alright, first things first, it's time to talk about the Dodgers season as a whole. So we only have a 60-game schedule as opposed to a normal 162-game schedule, which first off I'm really bummed about because I thought coming into the year this Dodgers team actually could have potentially, surpassed the amount of wins they had last year when they set the record for most wins in franchise history. I don't think necessarily they would have reached the 116 that the Seattle Mariners set 20 years ago for the MLB record. I don't think they would have reached that, but I definitely think the Dodgers with this team could have won 105 to 110 games over the course of a 162-game schedule. Unfortunately, we won't get to see that. Hopefully, we maybe get to see that next year if we get a 162-game schedule, but we have 60 games. I am personally okay with that because I kind of near the end of June, or I guess the middle of June, when things just weren't looking good at all because Manfred, as you know, is an awful commissioner. I personally didn't think we were going to get baseball. I thought there would be a canceled season. So the fact we're getting 60 games, personally, I think 80 to 90 would have been the absolute perfect amount because I don't think 60 is enough, especially in such a short amount of time. But again, I'm happy to see baseball. I'm happy that we get it on a day-to-day basis. So 60 games, that's what we got. I will take it. How many games can the Dodgers win over a 60-game stretch? And this is where things get interesting. I believe their over-under entering the season was 37.5, which personally, I think they hit that over. I think the Dodgers easily can get 40 wins, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them get maybe 42, 43, maybe even 45. They're very capable of that. I think they're the best team in all of baseball this year. However, a 60-game stretch, we've seen it in years past. What was it, a few seasons ago, where in the middle of May, the Dodgers were like 10 games under 500, something like that? I don't think necessarily that that's going to happen to them this year, but with such a short season, if you go through, a 10-15 stretch, a 15-25 stretch, that essentially knocks you out of the postseason. Well, at least you thought it did until postseason expansion, which I'll get to later in the show. That's the one thing that does worry me, where, again, the Dodgers, they can enter a bit of a slump where, they go on a 5 or 6 game losing streak. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this team is too good. But it does worry me just a bit. But again, as I mentioned, with the expanded postseason now, I don't think the Dodgers have any worrying to do. But overall, my guess for them, assuming everything goes as planned, I think they easily can win 40 games, and I think easily they're going to be the division winner yet again. Does this benefit them? Does a 60-game season benefit the Dodgers? And I think it really does. A few weeks ago, I was tweeting out about this. It helps guys like Clayton Kershaw, which I guess it's not helping now since he just got injured yesterday. He's now on the injured list. But I was thinking going into the season, I really thought this would benefit guys like Clayton Kershaw, David Price, because they are up there in age. So I thought a shortened season, less risk for injury. But as we saw, David Price, he decided to opt out for the season. Clayton Kershaw, he's already on the injured list after hurting himself in a workout the other day, so not going as I planned there, but I think for guys like Corey Seager, I think for guys like Max Muncy, I think for guys, like Will Smith, Austin Barnes, who are going to be getting a lot of the catching work, I think having a 60-game season, it's going to help a lot with, these guys not getting injured, but it also could be detrimental where, a guy gets hurt, and normally he's out for a few weeks, maybe a month. All of a sudden, a guy's out for half the season, 1/4 of the season. So, again, there's positives and negatives where I don't think we're going to see as many injuries as we would during a normal season. However, if a guy does get hurt, again, like Clayton Kershaw, he's already missing potentially 1/4 of the regular season. So, you got pros and cons to each end. I mentioned some pros, I mentioned some cons, but overall, I think for the Dodgers as a whole, 60 games, they'll be fully healthy, hopefully, come October. One thing I want to mention before I move on is also the DH. I don't think, thinking back, if I've talked about the potential of a DH in the National League. Again, I don't really remember when they made it official, when the announcement was, it was coming that there would be a DH in the NL in 2020. I'm split on both of these ends because I'm one where I'm a old-fashioned baseball fan. I love small ball. I love, Dave. I know a lot of people don't like when Dave Roberts is making 5 or 6 pitching changes an inning. I like that. I like playing the matchups. I like pitchers coming in for 1 or 2 batters. I don't mind if that makes the game an extra 30 minutes longer. I can watch baseball for 5 or 6 hours. I don't mind. So I am going to miss, that old-fashioned National League baseball, all the switches that, have to be made, all the lineup switching, again, the pinch hitters, all that stuff. I absolutely love it. That's what makes the National League Baseball, in my opinion, so much better than American League Baseball. However, thinking about this now and seeing how it's looked so far, the DH is going to be nothing but beneficial to the Dodgers. I mean, they have arguably the deepest, offense in all of baseball. Not only is their starting lineup the best in baseball, they have probably the best bench in baseball, where a lot of these guys, that are sitting on the bench that aren't playing, they'd be starters for pretty much any other team. I think having the DH is going to be great. You're having 9 guys in the lineup that are absolutely fantastic hitters. You don't have the guaranteed out with your number 9 hitter, and it gives guys like Justin Turner, AJ Pollock, Jock Peterson, guys that maybe you don't want to have out there in the field, you can still have them in the lineup at the DH. So knowing Dave Roberts, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if there are 60 different lineups for the 60 different games this year, and I'm okay with that. For years I've been saying I don't want the DH in the National League, but again, after thinking about it, after seeing it, it will help the Dodgers. It will be beneficial towards them, especially come postseason time, when you need these crucial at-bats, and all of a sudden you have the pitcher come up. So again, I do like old school baseball. I still would prefer old school baseball, but this definitely benefits the Dodgers, especially for 2020. So who would have thought I'd be saying this, but I am officially on board. Now, my next topic of discussion I want to get to, and that's if the Dodgers win the World Series in 2020, should it be viewed as legit? Should there be an asterisk next to it? Should that be considered a regular championship? And here's where I stand on it. First and foremost, yes, it 100% is a legit championship. It should be recognized as that, and there shouldn't be an asterisk next to it. I know that a lot of people, I know Earl Hershiser, he has his thoughts, and he thinks that it's legit, there shouldn't be an asterisk, and I agree with him. Here's the thing I haven't heard him mention, but this is kind of where I've stood leading up to this, and if there was going to be a season, this is what I was saying, why there shouldn't be an asterisk. The Dodgers, they were going to make the playoffs regardless. They were going to win the NL West, and nothing's changed. They're going to win the NL West in the shortened season, or if something goes wrong, they're still going to be in the playoffs with the expanded postseason. The Dodgers were going to be in the playoffs regardless. So it doesn't matter whether or not you're playing 162 games, 100 games, or 60 games, even like 30 or 40 games. However many games would have been on the MLB schedule, the Dodgers would have made the postseason. So that being said, once you make the postseason, there are no changes to the postseason. I mean, now you have an additional few teams that make it, so if anything, it's actually kind of harder. The hardest thing about baseball is winning in the postseason because, in my opinion, it is the biggest crapshoot of any of the major sports. In the NBA, you rarely see a team that's like a 7 or 8 seed, go on a run, make the finals and win. In the NFL, sometimes you'll see a team that starts the playoffs on the road, but they often won't make a Cinderella story out of it and win the Super Bowl. In the MLB, we've seen it time and time again where there have been wild card teams that have gone on to win it all, teams that, had the best record in baseball. The Dodgers this past year, the Mariners who won 116 games, 20 years ago, they didn't even make it to the World Series. It's such a crapshoot in the postseason where, again, I don't think necessarily every year the best team wins at all. The Nationals, they went on a great run last year, but were they a better team than the Dodgers? Were they a better team than the Astros? I'm not necessarily sure. It's a lot easier in baseball to go on a hot stretch and, win a 5-game series, win a 7-game series than these other series. So once it comes down to the postseason, anything can happen, and that's why I think getting there, the Dodgers would have done anyway. It's just a matter of what they do in the postseason. So if the Dodgers come October, if they're able to, go through the Braves, go through the Nationals, go through the Reds, go through whoever is going to be, in the National League postseason with them, I think it's just the same as if it's any other year. And then when you're in the World Series, you still have to beat the best team in the American League, whether that's going to be the Astros this year, whether that's going to be the Yankees, whether it's going to be the Twins. You still have to beat the best team in 7 games. So for that reason, that's why I think that if the Dodgers are able to win the World Series this year, it shouldn't come with an asterisk because there is so much that has to happen in the postseason for you to win it. And additionally, this year, you have to go through an extra round. You have to go through a 3-game series that could be tough for some of these teams. So now you're having to win 4 series to win the World Series on top of, not playing baseball for 3 months during the pandemic, having to come together, play in empty stadiums, play baseball that's never been played before in a way that hopefully this is a one-time thing. So overall, and I think Orel Hershiser said this as well, it shouldn't be an asterisk, it should be a gold star, and I completely agree. This is a season unlike any other. Same thing for the NBA, maybe the NFL, we'll see how that goes, the NHL. This is going to be a season that hopefully we never see, and it's going to be extremely difficult for a team to win a championship. So again, if the Dodgers are able to win a World Series in 2020, there shouldn't be an asterisk. They won it, and I'm gonna treat it as such. I'm gonna treat it as a normal World Series championship. Now, would I like for there to be fans in attendance so I could personally, in person see the Dodgers win a World Series? Of course I would. That's been my number one dream since I was a kid. But we have to take this for what it is. So again, Dodgers, if they win, don't put an asterisk next to it. It's a legitimate championship. But some guy that's going to help the Dodgers compete for championships for the next 10, 15, 20 years, however long this guy stays in his prime, is Mookie Betts. One of the last podcasts I did was actually me talking about the Mookie Betts trade, how amazing it was, how I can't believe the Dodgers actually pulled the trigger, build a statue for Andrew Friedman. Well, I think Andrew Friedman, if he didn't need a statue built already, this has to be the deciding factor because he signs Mookie Betts to I believe it is a 12-year extension, but on top of this year, makes it 13 years he'll be spending with the Dodgers. $350+ million. There's a bunch of, little details within the contract, but I think it's for $360 million. And boy, was I shocked the other day when I woke up to this news that the Dodgers were working on an extension. Me personally, and I think I said this months back when the Dodgers acquired him, I didn't think it was going to be a rental. We've seen the Dodgers do this in years past with Manny Machado, Yu Darvish, but kind of going into it, you didn't expect really the Dodgers to re-sign them. You knew they were going to be a rental for the year. But I just had this suspicion with Mookie Betts. The Dodgers, they didn't really give up a huge haul. Verdugo, Jeter Downs, they're probably going to be studs, but they didn't give up a huge haul. And a lot of people were thinking because of that 1-year rental, it's fine. But I just had this suspicion that the Dodgers, we've seen them strike out in years past with so many of these free agents. They haven't been able to make the big trades, re-sign guys long term. I just had a feeling something was different with Mookie Betts. Something was different. The Dodgers have no money after 2022 given to any players. I think AJ Pollock and Max Muncy after 2022 are the only players that are still in the books. Maybe some arbitration guys. Those guys, I'm sure Cody Bellinger will get re-signed, but for the most part, they have no money to spend over the next few years on players. So I thought for that reason, why not, drop a ton of money on Mookie Betts? It's not every day that one of the best players in baseball becomes available. Mike Trout, he's the best player. The Angels made sure they re-signed him long term, so he's off the books for the foreseeable future. Mookie Betts, he's going to be free agent in a year. any other decade in baseball, Mookie Betts would be the consensus best player in baseball. However, you got Mike Trout, so Mookie Betts has to be number 2, but he's the best player that's not named Mike Trout, so that's pretty good company. It's not every day a guy like this becomes available in his prime at the age of 27 where you can lock him up long term. So normally I am against these long contracts in baseball. I don't think these players are worth it. I think 10-year deals, I mean, we see if maybe for a few years it looks great, but in the back end, we've seen it with Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, it looks awful for the team. But when you can get a guy like Mookie Betts, again, at the age of 27, I am more than okay of getting 6-7 years, maybe even more of him in his absolute prime, him being a top 5 player in baseball and having to deal with that contract later in. But the way they did this contract, the Dodgers don't even have to worry about paying him too much money on a year-to-year basis. I think he had like a $65 million signing bonus. A lot of the money's deferred, so I think the Dodgers are only going to be paying him, $25 to $30 million a year, over the next few years, which is a fantastic steal. That's an absolute bargain. Considering you look at across MLB and see what guys are getting $30-35 million a year, you're only having to pay Mookie Betts $25 million a year. That is an absolute steal. And again, he's in the prime of his career. He's accomplished, so much. He has an MVP, a Silver Slugger, Gold Glove, World Series. He's already done it all. And he easily can be doing that with the Dodgers for the next 10 years. So again, I am completely on board with giving him the long contract extension. And again, I didn't expect it to happen before the season, but it totally makes sense. Why? Because you don't want Mookie Betts playing the rest of the season, having to answer that question every week. Are you going to re-sign here? What are you thinking? Because you could tell, the previous weeks when he's been asked that, he seemed like he was kind of annoyed already with it. He just wants to play baseball, but it takes a load off his shoulders this season for him personally, and it takes a load off the Dodgers for this season personally, because as well, they don't have to worry about, is he going to re-sign with us? Now he's with you long-term. Mookie knows where he's going to be long-term. So overall, this is great for the Dodgers. This is great for Mookie Betts. He already seems to love it here, which is fantastic. He talked about how the Dodgers have built a winning organization. When he was in Boston, he was paying attention to how the Dodgers have built a winning franchise and how they're not only, set to compete this year, they're essentially set to compete for the next 5 to 10 years easily because they've done such a great job, constructing this team together. So Mookie Betts, the fact that he signed, this mega deal before he even played an official game with the Dodgers just goes to show how confident he is in with the team, how confident the team is with him. So overall, this is just a great move for the Dodgers. Very happy to have him here. And if the Dodgers can just lock up Cody Bellinger now in the next few years or so, which I'm sure they will, they're going to have 2 of the 5 best players in their prime for a solid decade, so it's definitely a great time to be a Dodgers fan. But alright, let's move on to opening day now. I only have a few things I want to touch up on. I want to get too in-depth on one game because, it is one game, it is the Giants. This should be a 4-game sweep, so just some notable takeaways that I have that I kind of want to just touch on before we get to the expanded postseason and the Q&A. Dustin May, he gets the start, replacing Clayton Kershaw, who went on the injured list. I kind of talked about that earlier in the episode. I thought the shortened season would actually help Kershaw, but it looks like he's going to be out for who knows how long. As of right now, Dave said he potentially can come back for the Arizona series a week from now, which would be great. Kershaw, just make sure he's healthy. Again, the Dodgers are going to win the division, no problem, so make sure he's healthy for October, but not an ideal way to start the season, especially for Kershaw. And it's a drag. I mean, he didn't start opening day last year. It's kind of, his thing to do. Will this be his final chance to start opening day? I'm not sure. I'm sure the Dodgers will give him a chance next year. But, Walker Buehler, he's turning into the ace of the staff. Will it be him? So have we seen Clayton Kershaw's last opening day start? I hope not. Hopefully he gets one more in him, especially in front of a full Dodger Stadium crowd. He really deserves that. But Dustin May, he gets the start. He looked shaky at times. He did allow, I think, 7 or 8 hits, allowed only 1 run, struck out 4. But overall, I thought he looked good given the circumstances that a few days ago he was fully, intending to start the season with the Dodgers' alternate site, at USC. Essentially, the minors to start the season, and he has to start opening day. He wasn't even planning on being in the starting rotation to start the season. The Dodgers had their 5 guys already set, so he comes in, he gets the opening day start, he looks good. Personally, I've been saying this for weeks and months, Dustin May should be in the starting rotation. I don't like the idea of having him as a piggyback guy or having him as a relief pitcher. This is a guy where he has the stuff to be a potential ace. He has the chance to be an amazing starting pitcher in baseball, and I don't like the idea of, keeping him held back because Ross Stripling, it's his time to shine. Alex Wood came here to be a starter. I think Alex Wood actually would be a great addition to the bullpen. A great lefty there in the bullpen. He has the chance to eat 1 or 2 innings if needed. I think Dustin May should get the chance over Alex Wood. That's just how I feel. Maybe even Ross Stripling. But Ross Stripling, he's been so good as a starter, so good out of the bullpen, and he has been kind of screwed over the last few years. How he's put in so much work, but he just can never get that full-time starting position job. So maybe let him be a starter. Put Alex Wood in the bullpen, but Dustin May, I think this is a guy that desperately needs to be in the starting rotation because, again, he doesn't deserve to be in the bullpen. But then again, as long as he's getting innings, as long as he's getting work, I'm okay with that. But it looks like at least until Kershaw's back, we're going to be seeing Dustin May in the starting rotation. Max Muncy hit leadoff yesterday. That was interesting because it looked like what we saw in the scrimmage games was Mookie Betts. He was going to be the Dodgers' leadoff hitter. Mookie Betts has been a leadoff hitter, while at Boston. Max Muncy had never been a leadoff hitter, and Dave pretty much comes out and says this is kind of what he wants to go with moving forward. He kind of wants to have that left, right to begin the lineup. And I don't know how I feel about that. I personally, I wrote this down right here. If I was making the lineup, I would have Mookie hitting leadoff. I'd have Justin Turner hitting second, Max Muncy third, Cody Bellinger fourth, Corey Seager fifth, and then you can make the lineup however you want to make it. Throw Jock in there at 6, Pollock there at 6, Will Smith there at 6, any of the guys. I don't mind 6 through 9 how you have it, but 1 through 5, I think that's the perfect thing to have. Muncy, I don't know how I feel about him being a leadoff hitter. Mookie Betts, I think he's a perfect leadoff hitter for the Dodgers, and then having Justin Turner come up after Mookie Betts, I think is great. And then you got Seager hitting behind all those guys, which is a doubles machine. So Seager's going to have guys on base. Have him hit 5th. So again, it's a great lineup 1 through 9. It's the best lineup in all of baseball. Don't really need to read too much into it. Again, this is just what I would do if I was calling the shots. And again, I trust Dave. I trust him with this lineup. But personally, again, I'm not a huge fan of Muncy hitting leadoff. I prefer to see Betts there. But with how this lineup is, he could hit Mookie 9th, hit Muncy 7th, have, Will Smith hitting leadoff for all I know in the Dodgers lineup. They're still going to score runs. They're still going to win games. But I did think that was, a little interesting. The bullpen. The bullpen looked fantastic last night. Now, again, these games are against the Giants, who are projected to be the worst team in the National League this year, so I'm not going to look too much into it, but again, Caleb Ferguson, he looked good in his brief outing. He was throwing heat. He was hitting like 95, 96, and something about him just looked different. I don't know what it was, but we've seen spurts where Ferguson can look really good. Hopefully he can build on that for this upcoming season. He can be that go-to lefty in the bullpen for the Dodgers. Adam Kolarek came in. Now, Adam Kolarek, we've known this, for the last year the Dodgers have had him. He's only a lefty specialist. He's only good against lefties. He was Juan Soto's father in the playoffs. Juan Soto had no answer for him. But last night, because we have this new rule where pitchers have to face batters, minimum of 3 batters, or if they finish the inning, they're done. So Kolarek, a lot of people were wondering, how's this going to work for him now that he has to face righties? Well, he looked fine last night. I think he faced 5 batters. I believe he got out 3 righties and 2 lefties. Again, I don't have the exact numbers, but I think it was something like that. So Kolarek came out, got lefties, got righties out, so that's definitely a good sign moving forward because, again, Kolarek against lefties is one of the best, left-on-left guys in all of baseball. If he can get righties out, I think it was something like righties were hitting, I want to say 260, 270 off of him, maybe 250 last year. If he can bring that average down to 220 because he is already so dominant against lefties, Kolarek, he is going to be an absolute weapon in the bullpen. Pedro Baez, again, for whatever reason, Dodger fans give him a bad rap. He looked good as always. He's always been a great relief pitcher for the Dodgers. And Brusdar Graterol came in for that 9th inning, who I think in a few years down the line could be the potential Dodgers closer once Kenley kind of moves on, once Kenley kind of passes the torch. This is a guy that throws 100 miles an hour with ease. He throws like a slider that's 92 miles an hour. He looked great. If he can just have control, if he can have command, this is going to be a huge piece for the Dodgers, which I know Mookie Betts is the biggest, acquisition of the offseason, but I kind of jokingly said it a few months ago, and it could be the case. Brusdar Graterol, that trade that the Dodgers made with the Twins could turn out to be the best trade the Dodgers made because if he can pan in to what I think a lot of people are expecting, which is a lockdown closer, a go-to guy in the 8th inning, and that the Dodgers got him for Kenta Maeda, what a steal that's going to be, what a move that's going to be. So Brusdar, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. But the bullpen as a whole, they look great. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in this upcoming series and how they look moving forward. But the last thing I want to touch up on really quickly before the Q&A is the expanded postseason. Yesterday, MLB announced that they're going to be moving from 10 teams to 16 teams. Only for the 2020 season for now. They said it's just an experiment. They just want to test it out for this season. Hopefully, this doesn't stick because me, personally, I absolutely hate it. I think having 10 teams is perfect. I like having the wild card game, which is a winner-take-all type situation. But now you have 16 teams. More than half the teams in baseball make it. I mean, the best part about the MLB postseason was the fact that it was, so little. NBA's got 16, NHL has 16. NFL, I know they're expanding, so I think they have 12 or 14 now. Again, I'm confused on how many they have. But MLB, it was the least amount of teams, and now you're just like NBA where you can have an okay season and you're making the playoffs. You're going to have teams that might be below 500 that make the playoffs. I remember I saw yesterday, I think someone said that the Rangers last year with this format, I think the Rangers went 77-85. They would have made the postseason. So not only are division winners making it, teams that come in second in their division, they're going to make it, and potentially teams that come in third or maybe even fourth place make it, because what the rule is, they're taking, all first and second place teams, and then they're taking the teams with the next two best records. So let's just say one of these divisions is really stacked. You're going to have the third and fourth place team from a division. Imagine making the playoffs as a fourth place team in your division with only 5 teams. That's an absolute joke. So the thing that I hate the most is not only the 16 teams, which is awful in its own right, is the fact that the first round of the playoffs are going to be a best of 3 series. Best of 3 meaning you lose game 1 and you're already in a hole. You got to win 2 to stay alive. But in a best of 7 series in baseball, usually the best team's going to win. In a best of 5 series, for the most part, the best team's going to win. There are going to be times where a team's able to get hot, rattle off 2 or 3 wins. Again, but the Dodgers and Nationals last year, I think the Dodgers were a better team. They lost in 5. But for the most part, I want to say 75% of the time, the better team's going to win a best of 5 series. A best of 3 series, the Dodgers could play the Orioles, the Tigers, and something can go wrong. They can lose 2 or 3, and all of a sudden they're done. I don't like the fact that you can have a team like the Dodgers, or any team like the Yankees, any team that has the best record in baseball, and they have to go against a team that's potentially below 500. And because they struggle for 2 games, all of a sudden their season's done. Anything can happen in baseball in a 3-game series. Anything. I think any team could beat any team in a 3-game series, and that worries me, especially you got some of these teams, maybe like the Mets, the Reds, who have, the Nationals, for example, as well, who have really good, starting pitching, where their offense might not be that good, but they have really good starting pitching. The Nationals' offense this season, with the loss of Juan Soto, their offense is going to be brutal. I don't think they're going to have a good offense whatsoever. If they were to be missing Juan Soto and just have no offense whatsoever, but still have Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and Patrick Corbin in a playoff series, a 3-game playoff series, they can easily win that. And that really scares me. I don't think necessarily if you have the Dodgers, if they're playing a team that's 500, again, I don't know who's going to make it, but let's say the Rockies make it. The Rockies go 30-30, they make the playoffs. I think the Dodgers will still win. They do have all 3 games at home, which is an advantage. But it does worry me. I'm not going to be shocked if we see it this year. If one of these top teams, if it's a top 1 or 2 seeded team, if they just lose in a 3-game series to a team that doesn't deserve to be there. So again, for the most part, if the teams are good enough, they should win. But 3-game series, anything can happen. So that really worries me as a Dodgers fan. It's going to make that first round that much scarier. But again, I get why the MLB wants to expand. I get why they want more teams. They want more playoff games. Hopefully this is a 1-year thing, and hopefully this isn't something that we see moving forward, because I hate it. I know a lot of fans hate it. This benefits teams like, the Angels, where they weren't going to win their division, but this gives them a chance to get in. Teams that are kind of on the outside looking in, that might have been playoff teams that now have a chance to get in. This is great for them. I'm sure if the Dodgers were projected to finish 2nd or 3rd in the division and this would come out, I'd be all for it. But again, it's just not smart. I like having the 10 teams for baseball, and I just really hope they don't go for this whole 16-game expansion, because it does make getting to the postseason kind of easier, which the whole point of the season was it needs to be a dogfight. Teams need to be clawing and fighting to get into this postseason. Now, if it's just we can play 500 ball all season and make it. But now if teams can just play 500 ball all season, the competitiveness is taken out of it, and I don't like that. So again, hopefully it's for 1 year and 1 year only. But that does bring us to our final segment, the Q&A. Every time I record a podcast, I go to my Twitter, which by the way is at Blake Harris TBLA, and I tweet out about an hour before I do the show saying, if you have any questions, whether it's Dodgers related from the previous game, the season, roster moves, anything, hit me up with those questions and I'll answer as many as I can. So if you would like to ask me a question in a future episode, make sure to follow me on Twitter, have those notifications on. That way when I tweet out saying, hit me up with Q&A questions, you guys can ask me any questions you have, or as always, you can personally DM me those questions. I can save those for the show, or you can leave comments on my YouTube video that I'm currently, you're watching this on right now. So if any Dodger questions moving forward, you can leave a comment on this YouTube video, because maybe if you don't have a Twitter, maybe this is easier. Leave a comment on this video, and again, my next podcast I'll go back and I'll answer some questions from the video as well. So a lot of ways you guys can ask me questions. I like answering all these different kinds because you guys always come up with really good questions. So again, if you want to ask me a question for a future episode, that's how you could do it. All right, so it looks like we only have a time for a couple of questions today. The first one's going to come from Joseph Rocco, and this is actually ironic because I talked about this earlier in the show, and he said, what did you think of Roberts' lineup last night, specifically batting Muncy at leadoff and Mookie second? Sounds like that will be the plan against righties moving forward. Yeah, Joseph, I just wasn't a fan of it. I really want to keep Mookie as the leadoff hitter, put Muncy in the 2-hole, put him in the 3-hole, put him in the 4-hole, put him whatever. I don't think Muncy is a leadoff hitter. I don't like that move. But then again, the Dodgers lineup is so good moving forward. I trust Dave, but it definitely caught me off guard, and I know it caught a lot of the beat reporters off guard, because that was like one of the first questions I think they asked Dave was, what's going on here? You said Mookie was going to be your leadoff hitter, so I'm not too concerned about it moving forward. We'll see how it looks. Hey, maybe Muncy turns into an amazing leadoff hitter. Maybe he's an on-base machine. Maybe he's hitting dingers like no other, so we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But yeah, I was a little curious by it. And our next question comes from Roniel Moral. For those of you that don't know, I'm absolutely awful at pronouncing names. Unless it's a basic name, I cannot pronounce it. I don't know why. Like, I'm great at reading, writing. I can, I've always been great at spelling bees. I could spell anything. All that stuff I'm fantastic with. But yet when it comes to pronouncing names, I don't know why. I'm just awful at it. So if you ever ask me a question and I butcher your name, I personally apologize. He wants to know, when do you think Gavin Lux will be called back up? So this was something I didn't even talk about during today's podcast, is the fact that the Dodgers optioned Gavin Lux. They sent him to the alternate site, and we don't know necessarily when he's going to be back. Gavin Lux, he reported late. I think he was 1 or 2 weeks late. He just reported this past week. And the at-bats he got, in the scrimmage games, he looked awful. He looked lost at the plate. He had a routine ground ball at second base that he overthrew. People were saying he had the yips or something. Gavin Lux looked awful. He didn't look like a big leaguer, so the Dodgers, they sent him down. Now, this comes at a really perfect time for the Dodgers, because I tweeted this the other day. Entering the season, I said I wouldn't be shocked if the Dodgers started Gavin Lux in the minors in order to preserve his service time. I forget what the exact amount of dates were, but I believe Gavin Lux, if he would have been in the minors for the first month and a half of the season, the Dodgers would have gained an extra year of eligibility with him. One year later, he would enter free agency, so they'd gain an extra year of control over him. Now, again, is this what the Dodgers have in mind? I don't know. I think coming in, because now with the season condensed, he only would have needed to be, option for 2-3 weeks, I think. So not a long period of time. Now with him showing up to camp late, him looking awful, this gives the Dodgers a perfect chance to send him down and say, he looked bad at the plate. We want to work on his swing and we want to give him some time, which again, this very well 100% could be the reason the Dodgers are doing it, and it very well might be. But again, they do, by keeping him down there for a few weeks, they are going to gain that extra year of control over him. So when will Gavin Lux be up? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a week until he's called back up. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a month until he's called back up, because Gavin Lux, we saw last year, he showed flashes of being great, but he didn't look like he was ready yet. So I actually don't think he is ready for the show yet. I do think he needs some more time, more work, but he definitely deserves a roster spot on the Dodgers, especially with how their depth is. He's a guy you want to get consistent at bats for. but I do think he needs work. So in regards to when we'll see him next, I do think they're going to hold him down there until they gain that extra year of control over him, and then we'll see him. So whether that's end of August, it might be a while. If there's an injury, of course, we're probably going to see him. If there's an injury to Kike, Chris Taylor, maybe like Muncy, we'll probably see him called up earlier. But if everyone stays healthy, if everything stays as it is now, because again, the roster is going to shrink to 28 and then 26, I think it's going to be a while before we see Gavin Lux. So I'm putting my guess end of August, early September, again, assuming everyone stays healthy. But that wraps up this episode of Thinking Blue. Thank you to everyone for the questions. Again, if you have any question you'd like answered in a future episode, make sure to leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter at Blake Harris, TBLA. Again, I always love answering you guys' questions. I love talking Dodgers baseball with you guys. As I mentioned, follow me on Twitter at Blake Harris TBLA. A lot of great Dodgers content. If you're a Dodgers fan, it is an absolute must follow. If you follow the Dodgers or anyone else on Twitter, this is an absolute must follow. Not only am I tweeting out the latest Dodgers news, I'm just tweeting out videos, GIFs, interesting stats, anything like that. So again, if you're a Dodgers fan, an absolute must follow. The link is in the description below. You can click that and go give me a follow. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you're notified when I post these here. Also, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Podcasts. The links to those are in the description of this video. Or if you're listening, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever one you use. Search Thinking Blue with Blake Harris, or just search Blake Harris. You can find me there. Make sure to give me a follow, subscribe over there. That way, if you miss it on YouTube, you guys can again listen in the car. You guys can listen at the gym, listen when you go on a walk, listen wherever you are. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, easy to listen to those podcasts. I don't have a schedule yet for how often I want to get these out. I definitely want to get at least one a week out. I don't think a day-to-day podcast is anything I can do, because I don't think there's going to be enough to talk about on a day-to-day basis. So maybe like one after every series. So definitely 2, maybe 3 a week. But then again, if you guys want these on a day-to-day basis, we can definitely make that happen. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next podcast.